No, not yet.
Okay. Lorraine?
She'll be back on in a moment. She was having connection problems. She's going to turn on her computer. Here she is. Hold on one second. We'll get her on. Hi, there you are, Lorraine.
All right, great. Lorraine and Asha?
Here.
Okay. Perfect. And Elle?
I'm here, present.
Yeah, perfect. All right, so minutes from our last meeting. So A1 Lighting on Shirley Ave wants to do a mural on the side of their building. We didn't actually talk about it, but it was just mentioned.
I'll give an update on that once we get to it.
Okay. The virtual Zoom meeting for the Beachmont Fire Station has been rescheduled for August over Zoom, and that meeting will be translated into Spanish and Arabic. ShirleyAve.com, there's a co-urbanized budget of $250K for improvements on Shirley Ave. And it was going to be set up a platform where people can drop a pin at a location and give a suggestion for what they wanted to do in that space. The traffic plan for the murals update is underway. The planning department had secured contracting on demand and received a quote to complete the traffic plan. And we had received a quote to complete that. It was mentioned that the Northern Strand mural project would be our first project as a commission. And Lorraine shared some exciting ideas for grant writing projects. Those included things like renting rolling carts to position along the beach for artists to show their work. And this would require a DCR permit, which we would need to work out. Another idea was lobster trap benches using the Swampscott reference and ambient lighting to position along pavilions along the beach. And that was questionable whether DCR would allow something like that. And the next meeting would be tonight, August 15th. And that's everything I have.
Great, thank you, Erin. Is there a motion to accept the minutes?
I move.
Okay, thank you.
Second. No, second.
Okay. Moving right along. I just pulled up the agenda. I just want to pull that up real quick. We've got commission. So I'm just going to go real quick through the agenda. Number one is attendance. That's been completed. Then the lighting, the Beachmont Fire Station, the Northern Strand, traffic plan, fundraisers, grant updates, and planning dates for fall events, and then open discussion. So we'll move on to A1 lighting for Shirley Ave. I followed up with Joanne after the meeting, and I referred her. So A1 Electrical wasn't looking for a mural on the entire side of the building, but instead on the grate, the security grate that you roll down when you're closed. There is a project that's ongoing right now that will fund storefront improvements for Shirley Ave because of the location that business owner would qualify. So I gave Council McKenna the contact information to reach out to John Festa in the planning department, who's running that project. So hopefully we'll be able to get some funding for them and they can work towards that. I said, if they're looking for muralists, we're happy to provide that list of folks that we had reached out to and that had responded to the call for artists. So that could get them started if they had some ideas and they wanted to work with that. So I think we can probably close that item because I think that could potentially be fully funded through that storefront improvement project. So the next item we have on the list, does anyone have any other comments or questions on that? Beachmont.
No.
Beachmont Fire Station funding, 450,000 from the CIT fund. I really, I feel badly stealing Council McKenna's thunder on this one, but that's great news. There's $450,000 that is going to be available in the Community Improvement Trust Fund. And as the ward councilor, she's going to be motioning for that to be awarded to improvements for the Beachmont Fire Station so that that can begin the conversion and the transition from an abandoned fire station to a public art center. So we've had a structural assessment done. I've started to collect some information about how we can go about prioritizing the next steps. We know that it needs a new roof. We know that it needs to be repointed. Those are outside exterior improvements that are required for the stability of the building. We also know that there's lead and asbestos on the inside, and that will also need to be removed. So I started talking through that process with the purchasing department and with our DPW department. And I received yesterday some information about who we can reach out to that we have on contract with the city. So we'll be working towards that. So hopefully by the next time we meet, it will be after the August 28th meeting, which is when the council will take a vote on that request for that 450,000 to be allocated to the fire station for improvements towards becoming a community art center. The other update we have for the Beachmont Fire Station is we were going through the public process of talking through what the vision process is. It's been pretty consistent, we must say. We did try to have a community meeting, but unfortunately we really didn't have anybody signed up. So we postponed that. It may be scheduled for September. We felt maybe it was difficult having it in the summer. I know we just talked at the beginning of this meeting about 2 people just on this call that were on vacation. So we're going to postpone that until September. So we'll have another update and we can send that information out. It'll be posted on the website when that meeting is established a date. So I think the next update is from, I think I'm clicking back and forth screens. The Northern Strand Trail, Rob L, and I'm going to include Erin on that update as well. So I've been talking too much, so I'm going to hand that over. We did receive a proposal. So I'm just going to let Erin and Rob sort of jump in and speak to that. Let's go for it.
Okay. Erin, do you want to go ahead and just give your thoughts on the initial proposal real quick?
Sure. I was just going to pull it up. I'm actually on my phone, so I couldn't do I don't think I can do a screen share, but basically just to fill in Lorraine and Asha, as you might remember, we were talking about reaching out to Megan O'Brien, who was one of the finalists in our Call to Artists from last year, who's actually a Revere resident. So we spoke about this on our last call, and Elle and Rob reached out to her to get, and I believe you guys met with her in person. Is that right? At the location?
I did not know.
I did.
Okay.
Good.
All right, perfect. So I guess Elle met with her on location to see the spot, and she did a pretty in-depth proposal for us with a sketch kind of just initial thoughts, and also the budget and just some idea behind what her inspiration was. So I'm just pulling it up here.
I just pulled it up on the screen.
Oh, okay, perfect. Oh yeah, that's right. Okay. So you can see, Megan's work is very colorful and bold. You can see in some of her previous murals that she's done around as well. But as she says here, I don't know if you want me to read through all of it, but
I think
So the
we can-
idea,
Just give let's just do a quick overview, just a quick sort of
Okay.
rundown. Is it easier would you prefer if I do, if you're on your phone, is it?
I can,
Jump in and help a
I
little
can
bit.
actually read. I have it in front of me.
Okay, go right ahead.
Yeah, so just kind of going down, quick rundown, just to kind of frame it for everybody. So it's broken down into 3 phases, and then when she was looking at each phase, she is identifying costs associated with that. So phase 1, 12 columns surrounding the bike path. Phase 2 is the wall. It's not the one across the creek, it's the one on under the overpass, so it's actually looking away from the marsh. And then phase 3 is the the remaining 6 columns and the wall on the far side, so looking at the marsh. Overall, I like the approach that she's presented for us in that regard, just kind of breaking it out in phases. I think just relative to pricing, I think, which is the most important. From a quote perspective, I believe it was $20 per square foot that she's figuring for the so looking at the column. So the dimensions that we set out in the proposal, she's breaking it down to that regard. So when push comes to shove, I think versus kind of going into the detail, is what we need to think about is from a cost perspective. A lot of it is hitting top line budget. So we'd have to seek additional budget, or we have to be creative in the way we roll this out. And how we kind of want to, is it a rollout perspective, or is it something that we want everything done right away? But as Aaron noted, just from going from the pillars that we're looking here, phase 3 is actually, if you look across the creek there in the upper right,
mhm.
that's phase 3. So phase 1 would be the the pillars, so upper left image, and then the front pillars and the upper right image. And then phase 2 is, I don't think she has the way it's looking right now, but phase 2 would be the wall facing away from the marsh. Yeah, up there. Exactly. Thank you, El. So, Aaron, I think do we just want to go over the price proposal on this as well?
Sure. I actually don't, I'm not sure if we ever mentioned what our budget was for this project.
We did not, but
Okay,
I like the fact that she was very open on what
yeah,
the market rate is. So if you take a look at the work that she's done, it's across Boston, the Boston area. It encompasses the surrounding area. So I'm familiar with all her work. I didn't, especially the piece out in Arlington is fantastic. Or
mhm.
is that Medford, like Arlington Medford line?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with, typical costing for murals. So, I really wouldn't know what to expect. It seems like a big portion of the cost. She says that $15 to $30 per square foot is typical.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like the cost for the lift is a little bit, contributing to the higher, increasing the cost.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if Elle, when you met with her in person, if budget was discussed at all. So I don't know if she was trying to keep the cost lower or if she just kind of, because sometimes artists will like kind of buffer in like, half cans of paint, or, to make sure that there's extra. So I don't know if this was stretching the budget or if she was trying to keep it tighter.
We didn't mention budget, and for a couple of
Okay.
reasons. So when we got this budget, it was nearly 2 years ago.
Mhm.
And we wanted, I thought it was really important to go over the project and over her ideas, and I gave her sort of a quick background on what we had done before, which I think is
Okay.
basically, I think that's one of the reasons that she phased this out in phase 1, 2, and 3.
Mhm.
I think we may have discussed on this call before, but for those that may not have been here, we have tried to do the mural under this underpass twice. Once with some local Revere High School students, and they started, and it was just the two of them, and they were just going there and doing some work after school. And within a week, everything they had done had been painted over with graffiti. And then tried a second attempt using the Raw Art facility as a resource. And same thing, they were only able to come once or twice a week for about an hour or 2 hours. So it was saying, they really weren't being able to get much up on the wall before they had to leave. And again, the same thing happened. So by phasing this, the thought process was that she would be able to do more work and cover more ground. So the work would be finished and less likely to be tagged.
Why do you think it would be less like, when you say tagged, you mean?
Because if the work is completed, research has shown that really for, 3% of new murals get tagged because they respect the artist's other artist's work. But when it's in a phase where it really doesn't look like it's completed, or it just looks like another tag, it's sort of a different scenario. My only concern, I just want to voice my concern about the proposal. Well, one, we have a $25,000 budget, and as you can see, here's the budget in front of us. Phase 1 is 28,000. We could potentially work with that, try to factor in some things. Maybe we could help with the lift, things like that we could try to remove out of that phase, or that the city could take on or try to help. Sorry, I just want to go back up to here. So the only thing that concerns me, so in these photographs, this end over here, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but to the left, the bottom right, but to the left of the proposal, that looks like a blank canvas. And if you just look up here, that's what happens when we painted all of these columns blue. This is what happens. So I don't think we have the ability to have any of this blank space. It really needs to be filled in with art. Same thing here.
I see what you mean. Definitely.
I think there's a lot of blank space up here, and I think that's just really going to encourage tagging. So, I mean, I wanted to discuss all of this with all of you and sort of get your thoughts and what you think. That concerns me because I've painted the graffiti under this bridge 5 times with a crew of volunteers.
Wow.
And whenever we do, we go as high as we can with the rollers, as you can see, and then this is what happens. So there was also the talk about doing this surface here. I don't know if the paint would make that slippery to walkers or runners or bikers. So that was my only concern about putting paint on that pavement, because it is a walking and running trail. And with weather conditions, I'm not sure if that would be slippery.
Right. Yeah, no, that was just I just had a couple of comments about the actual design. I agree with you 100%, Al, about the blank space there. And I also just kind of thought that the pillars corresponding with the towns was great. But the larger design of the sun and the flora and that part of it, to me, I kind of felt like was a little bit generic. So I kind of thought that there could be, whereas all the other towns have kind of something more iconic that represents the town, I feel like Revere should be, you know, much more represented and, you know, kind of recognized.
Mhm.
So that was kind of the only comment I had about the design of the larger part. And then yeah, and I just mentioned that maybe painting the grounds could be cool too, just because I think that would be kind of like an experience to ride through it. It would almost be like a little bit whimsical, or you know, it would kind of tie the person into it. But maybe it could be dangerous or not.
I think it could
Not
totally
making
be
sense.
done as long as we use the right kind of paint to make sure that it's not slippery. That's all, or
Mhm.
put sort of like a sort of a texture to it, so it's not, it doesn't get slick.
Mm.
with
And
weather.
maybe even if it's just kind of on the contours, almost like, you know, not necessarily where people would be walking,
Mhm.
but on the edges.
So I think,
Maybe.
I think I wanted to throw out there, I mean, do we think that it's worthwhile to request other proposals as well?
I think we should go that route.
Mm.
Yeah, I certainly think it's worthwhile to continue looking at other proposals. I think that the proposal that she made is great. It's very well organized and put together, and it is overall a good idea and breakdown of it. But if it's more than double the budget that you have set aside right now to actually complete the project in full, it's just not feasible. My other concern, and the biggest thing, like you had mentioned, Elle, is that every time that it's painted, it gets tagged again or vandalized. And is there, or are there, I guess, options for securing that artwork or the space so that it wouldn't be, obviously without, hindering the viewability of the artwork, like, you wouldn't want to put a fence in front of it, but
Right.
would that help deter people, vandals from tagging over it?
Well,
And that I'm not sure of.
so a couple things on that. Good point. One of the reasons we had, as a group, been discussing this as being a weekend event and bringing a number of different artists out and completing it in one weekend was because it would receive, one, a lot of attention because we could create an event out of it, and two, we can have it done in 2 or 3 days. And then, as you can see here, the anti-graffiti paint would cover it, but the paint has to dry before that can happen, and the work has to be finished before you can put the anti-graffiti on, because then you can't paint over it. So it's kind of a fine line. I mean, I think it's a great concept. I think she would do great work. To your point, both Erin and Asha, some of the design is a little simplistic, but again, this is like sort of a rough draft to kind of let us know what her thoughts were on this. I think if we were, worked with her, we could probably, help guide, a final design a little bit better.
Sure.
She did talk about the potential to bring in some other local artists to work with her on the process. So, I mean, I think that the artist is approachable and that we could, talk through a few things and a few different ideas. Asha, I think we've just lost you. But I don't know. Anyone
Yeah.
else want to weigh in? Lorraine, would you like to weigh in?
On this?
Yes.
No.
So
So-
I kind of feel like we could get back to her and just be transparent with the budget. And maybe we can see if there are aspects, like if the city does have a lift that could be, at her disposal, or power washer, those type of things in the budget that maybe could take a chunk off. I think one of the main benefit of working with her is that she is local. So if I remember correct, she was the only artist from Revere that applied to our call to artists. Not to say that there aren't other muralists that we can find in the city.
She's
But
actually
I think
not in Revere now.
What's that?
She's actually not living in Revere.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. All right. Okay, so that changes things a little bit then.
But she is local. I think she,
Okay.
I'm not gonna say what town she lives in. I can't recall, but it is not Revere.
Okay.
It's close. It's
Yeah.
one of the neighboring communities.
Okay.
So, anyway, she was wonderful to meet with. She was very enthusiastic
Mhm.
about the project. She said, well, what should I put in? I said, you should put everything in that you think is gonna be a cost. Because if she didn't, we wouldn't know sort of what's what.
Sure.
So I
To be
think
honest, to be honest, I think if we told her the budget was 25K, she would come up with a way to do something there for 25K.
so
To
I
be
think
honest,
so I think that's our answer. I think maybe
Mhm.
we set up a meeting and the three of us can do a walkthrough of the proposal and we can provide feedback and then we can take it from there.
That sounds great. Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds great.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone for your feedback and
Mhm.
we'll schedule something as soon as, she's able. And
Mhm.
hopefully maybe either the end of this week or very early Monday next week.
Mhm.
So Rob and Aaron, if you want to send me your availability and then I can reach out to her and see if you can give me 2 or 3 times that we can try to connect.
Okay.
Mhm.
Very good. So
Sure.
it's the next agenda item, if that's okay, unless anyone has anything else to share on that.
Yeah, sorry about that. My phone just kicked me off right in the middle
That's okay.
of your response. I'm sorry, could you just, what was the end?
Yes, so we decided that it's probably a great idea to, well, I mean, I think we were going to do this anyway, but we wanted to first get feedback from the commission and then take it back to the artist, meet with her, review the proposal, give some feedback and, have some dialogue about what the feedback is in regards to the design and the budget. And then we can take it from there.
Yeah.
Is that everybody on board with that? Does that sound amenable?
Mhm.
Okay,
Motion to accept?
Sounds good.
thank you. Next agenda item. Sorry, I'm flipping back and forth here. We have Northern Strand. Oh, traffic plan for the mural. Okay, State Road is not died of its long-term death just yet. We got the traffic plan done and I've submitted it to Mass DOT, so we're still waiting, but nonetheless, the traffic plan has been sent in. They had a question about the Granger mushroom fasteners that would be used to put the photographs onto the concrete. Responded to that as well. So just waiting and see. I'm going to continue once a week to follow up with Mass DOT via email to see if they've reviewed that process, that the updates to that, and hopefully we'll be able to get that moving forward. But it was great. We actually requested 2 proposals. One, if you can believe it, for the traffic plan came in at $10,000. And I said, we really didn't want you to write the whole application, just the traffic plan. So they revised it and they sent it back at $7,000. And then we said, I'm sorry, but that's more than the project budget is going to allow.
Yeah.
And then the other proposal that we received was for $3,000. And then someone in my department said, we have a new engineer in the engineering department. Let me see if he's ever done one of these traffic plans. And lo and behold, he has done them. And he's a new addition to the engineering department. And he said, sure, I can do that. And within like 3 hours, we had it done. So we're really happy to have that new resource within our own facility, which we didn't have before, that has that experience and was able to knock that out of the park. So onward and upward. So that was great news. And, we were able to do that internally as an in-kind cost. Brian's not here. Asha, I didn't know if you want to touch on that. I know you talked a little bit about fundraisers. I haven't heard anything if the two of you have been meeting or gone over anything else to see what we could do next.
Yeah, so there hasn't been any other communication between Brian and I in terms of the fundraiser or this event that we had a large discussion about last time. But I have been having some ideas. I thought it was a real missed opportunity. I feel like last time, the week after we had spoke, they had the sandcastle competition. And that could have been a really good opportunity to go out as a group and kind of spread some awareness about the Arts Commission. But I'm wondering if there is anywhere maybe a calendar of events that happen in the city.
It's on revere.org on the calendar. All the events are
Revere.org.
posted. So all the city events are posted, and most nonprofit agencies and the Parks and Rec Department, they send everything in. Previously, it was to Jackie in the mayor's office. She's since left. There's somebody in the mayor's office that's taken that on. I actually think it's Claudia, the new chief of staff. I think she's taking that on. And they meet every Thursday to determine what the next, not to determine, but anybody that is in a nonprofit, the library group is there, RSCHP is invited, all of the sort of nonprofit organizations, and they talk about what they're having for their next events. And then those events get put on the calendar. So it's pretty consistent and, it's pretty accurate on what's going on.
Now, are there ways that we could align ourselves to partner or help volunteer with some of these events?
Absolutely.
Yeah. What would be
If
the
you'd-
best way
If
to
you'd
go
like,
about?
if you'd like to attend, I can speak to Claudia and see if she's still holding that meeting. And if she is, I can see, I can ask that you get invited to that. I think it's Thursday mornings at 9 o'clock. So I don't know if that works for you, but previously it was always Thursdays at 9 o'clock. And then you can, even if you attend one or two, then you can kind of get on the list. And they usually distribute a spreadsheet maybe once a month that tells all the events in addition to what they post on the calendar.
Yeah, and I think that would be great, at least to just have a presence and be at more events and kind of meet more people in the city and kind of let them know about, the arts and what we're doing and what we're looking for, especially if there are, if we have call for artists as well too, just to meet more people and get the word out there would be good. And I'm happy to take on that responsibility to show up and be that advocate.
That would be great. And I just thought of an upcoming event. It's usually in the fall. I don't know when it is. It's usually sometime in September, second or third week in September. And it's put on by the Revere Beach Partnership. And it's right at the Marquee Bridge. And it's basically an art festival. So local artists can go there and sell their products. And there's usually an art competition of some sort, painting or something like something like that. I think you can use mixed medium. My daughter participated in that one year. It was a great event.
Hmm.
But that's coming up. I'm gonna see if I can look that up while we're on the call. So I'll take that as a takeaway to get you on that list. Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Grant updates, moving on to Lorraine.
Okay, so after the last meeting, I was thinking about how can we focus on some small grants. Elle and I were talking about something like a $5,000 grant, maybe $6,000, and the Mass Cultural Council has grants for small ones that we would be very competitive for things like perhaps a bench or a chair or seating in a public park and decorating it, whatever it would be. So that's something that I thought I would be very interested in working on through the Revere Cultural Council,
Yeah.
and see if we could request some funds and do something small just to get started in maybe doing eventually all of the parks. And I was thinking about whether a park, a park must have some seating, so it could have a bench, it could have some chairs. I was even thinking about if there were a rowboat around, something that you could stabilize and use as public seating and then have that decorated. So I'm curious to see how folks feel about that kind of a small grant.
I think it's a great idea.
Any drawbacks that you see, couldn't think of?
Not at all. Just identifying the right place for it. Placement for small artwork.
So I think that's key. You know, what would be a sort of a place that's visible, that so that people would see it and it would be colorful enough and yet be a seating availability. So that's one I'm willing to work on and with Elle and see if we could at least get started and do some more what would we call it, decorative bench applications, something that can be usable and yet artistic.
Mhm.
I think it has
Yeah.
possibilities could be endless about the cool things that people might come up with. So the
Yeah,
follow-
I think that, oh, sorry.
no, go ahead.
One of my favorite ideas that you had, Lorraine, at the last meeting was along those lines of having kind of like multiple, I think we had talked about maybe different areas of the city or different businesses sponsoring a bench, which I imagined, and maybe this wasn't the idea, but I imagined it to be kind of like the cows that are around Boston, you know? So maybe if that was kind of the similar thing that you had in mind from the Swampscott lobster trap idea, maybe this kind of initial bench, if that's what it is, or seating post, could be kind of like preceding that, so that, you know, maybe it's one example that we could use to then pitch this idea to roll out over a larger, you know, span of the city, like in the future years.
Yeah. You know what?
Yeah.
One of the things I've been sort of thinking about is how do you define Revere? Because some place like Marblehead talks about their maritime past. You know, they had boats, ships, whatever. Revere doesn't have that kind of a beach that encourages that, and yet we are a maritime city. We're one of the few places that you can get into the ocean. So whether it's a lobster trap or some kind of a rowboat or anything that can denote a maritime theme. We can either do that or leave it up to the artist. But I think we have to, I would love to be able to say that we have some kind of a thematic approach. We may not be able to do it, but it's something I think to think about in these designs for the benches for each park. So you carry a theme around the city. Each park has a bench or a chair or someplace, and it represents either the ocean or something connected with Revere.
I like it.
Okay, well, happy to work on it. And I think, Al, doesn't the grant come out September, October, something like that?
Yes, I spoke to someone today after our call, and I think that it's usually released September 1st and it's due October 15th.
Okay, that's a nice timeline. September 1st, October 15th.
Give or take a day or two, but that's generally the
Yeah.
release and the due date.
Okay, and I don't think this requires matching funds, which is
Correct.
good. That makes it a heck of a lot easier. All right, as soon as that happens, September 1st, Elle will get on to it.
Sounds good.
Okay.
And then, I mean, if we get funded through that, and we can also seek sponsorship, like Erin had mentioned. I think once you get one going, two
Yeah.
going. The other thing that we wanted to ask, I'm not sure if I just missed it, but what do you think, and I'm asking the artists on this call for your expertise. So for example, the previous artist with the proposal said roughly 15 to 30 per square foot for a mural. What type of budget do you think would be a feasible budget? So for example, if we said we're going to apply for $4,000 or $5,000, how many installations do you think that would?
Oh, good question. Good
Do you
question.
think it would be $1,000 an installation, $1,500 an installation? What do you think is a reasonable amount for the artist to pay for their own labor as well as materials to come up with such an installation?
Are we talking about making a bench?
Well, it could be a bench, it could be a chair, it could be anything. It's just something that you sit on. It's really the gist of it.
Right. So that's a really good question, because if there's a really nice park, but they don't have any seating, that means that the materials would be not only the paint, but either a chair or a bench or something where people could sit. So that has to be included.
Yeah, because we're not going to be asking them to paint existing materials. They would have to come up with the material and the idea.
Right. I think it really depends a lot on what the ideas and what the materials are.
Mhm.
Because, for example, I've never made fabricated a bench, but the foundry that I work with does. And someone had asked me to get a quote before for one of those like butterfly benches. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but it kind of looks like a butterfly so kids can sit on it, and it kind of makes them look like they're a butterfly.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's cute. It's cute, but it would be fabricated in steel. And then it would be powder coated. So like typically things that are outside for forever need to be, if they're metal, they need to be treated with
Right.
powder coating, which is usually adding like, the cost of that. I just did on a project, it was $1,200 to do the powder coating on my sculpture. And that was just like the cost for that coating. And that's what, like, if you see, powder coating can be all different type of colors, but it looks like shiny and it's usually bright colors.
Mhm.
So it's usually used for like swing sets in the public and stuff like that. Or, if something is made of wood, it's a little bit less expensive, but if it's a high quality wood, it's still, there's a cost for like something that's a higher quality. So I think and then, depending on the shape, if it's, say pieces of steel that just need to be welded together versus something that needs to be molded and casted into a shape is like very totally different cost. So it really kind of depends on the artist's idea. And then I'm sure there are like, people could have ideas to make things with cement or any type of other sort of like materials that would be less expensive. But
So what do you think would
Yeah.
be a reasonable budget for someone to be able to be creative? Do you think it should be like 1,500 or 2,000 or, maybe it's 2,500 and we apply for 5,000 and we only do 2 installations? What do you think?
I think definitely 2,500 at least, because just thinking in terms of, just in terms of materials, like I'm off the top of my head thinking if someone did out of wood, like basically making like, if I imagine a basic bench out of wood, that's still like probably, between 500 and 700 just for the wood. Like if it's a decent wood,
Mhm.
So yeah, I would say 2,500 would be like
Okay,
the minimum for something like that.
okay.
Yeah.
Asha, do you want to weigh in, or Rob, anyone else? Is it amenable?
Nothing to add from me. Thank you, though.
Okay. All right, so Lorraine, let's go for 5,000 and we'll do 2 installations.
All right, or
Locations
we'll
TBD.
maybe
The
investigate.
one, yeah,
Nice.
the one thing I wanted to add is just that, because when I think about a project like this, I think about, obviously, like Erin was talking about, the cost of materials and what would actually be to get hardware or something out there. And on top of the other materials like that the artist is using and what they need, and what would sort of be an award for them winning if they're gonna, put out a proposal and there's a bid for different artists to try to do this one piece. So, because, if someone were to win and say we applied for 5,000 to do 2 separate projects, and the materials in total, and that's like for, let's just say, a bench, and to order a new bench that's pretty much ready to go outside, it just needs to be painted and then secured with the powder Erin spoke of, to make sure that it lasts. That could cost anywhere between, well, you said that the bench would be around like 700 to 1,000 in raw materials, plus paints, and I'm sure all of that stuff, depending on the medium, would be pretty expensive. So it could be around 1,500 to 2,000 upwards, which would leave between $500 and $1,000 for the artist, which is a nice award. But I'm wondering, does it make sense to secure the furniture, for a lack of better words, and then give that to the artist and say, this is the piece that you have to work with, and now create art with it?
I
I
like
think,
that.
I think that, I mean, we may have different, I'm thinking that it shouldn't actually be a bench. Like, it should actually be something that you can sit on that's artistic, that more creative than, I mean, we have benches in all the parks. I don't want to just say, okay, here, go paint them. That's not, because we don't want to start a trend and then other people start painting all the benches that are there, like thinking that's what we should do.
But
No,
more so, like,
you
want someone to build a
like,
custom
build
art installation.
something that is,
Yeah.
it could be one chair, it could be one seat, it could be something that looks like something totally different. It could be a shell that's really a chair.
I
It
think-
could be made out of concrete, it could be made out of wood, it could be made out of plastics, it could be made out of something recycled, it could be made out of a lobster trap, it could be made out of, I'm not that creative and I can't build that stuff, but
I'm thinking
No,
of
no,
a
no.
Very
Now,
creative.
now I see what you mean. And it's more than just a park bench. It really is
not
an
really
art
a bench at all.
installation that doubles as a place to sit and enjoy the park. So, okay, very, very interesting. Yeah, no, I mean, with that said, disregard what I said, because these are 2 totally different ideas.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's very creative.
Yeah, I think just to kind of summarize it, the project name should be something you can sit on.
Yeah, I like that.
And that pretty much says
Mm-hmm.
Something you can sit on.
Or a seatable.
A seatable. I like that too. So we can toy around with whatever that
Yeah.
idea might be before we submit the application. But so everybody put your thinking cap on for what, clever term we can coin for the project. But I think it would be really cool to see what people come up with. And some people might come up with a bench that, has add-ons or something, but it shouldn't look like all the benches in the park. It should look like something that
Mm-hmm.
looks like art, but you can sit on it.
Did you say that all the parks do have benches, Al?
Yes.
They do. Okay. So this would be in addition.
Yeah, it would be basically a piece of art added to the parks.
That happens to be
Yeah.
seatable.
Yes.
Okay.
So
Sittable.
recently in our open space and recreation plan, we've added that whenever we do a new park, we try to incorporate something that brings the culture in. So we normally have sort of design sessions with the community in which the park is located. So for example, for Gibson Park, we had several community meetings, and one of the things that came out of there is, people drive their lobster boats down the river, which pass right by Gibson Park. There's another gentleman that lives just adjacent to the park, and he stores all those lobster traps in his yard and, in that vicinity. So we actually had a custom made climbable lobster trap made to incorporate into the space. That is it's a piece of art. It represents the culture and it can be played on. So we're trying to incorporate that. So I think adding, a seatable or something you can sit on that's artistic can also kind of feed into that. Harmon Park, they decided they just wanted to be patriotic. So everything was red, white, and blue. So the whole park is red, white, and blue. And they put up a flagpole. That's what they wanted to incorporate there. So, as we continue to renovate parks, and then Sunny Myers, we put the Cyclone to celebrate Revere Beach history. So we did like a mini roller coaster like this. No, it's like you just run over it. It's not a real roller coaster, but it says the Cyclone on it, which tied that into, it's on Beach Street. So anyway, so that's kind of where we're going with that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right, what's next? We have planning dates for the fall event. Asha, do you want to take that as a takeaway if you're going to attend this, the meeting for the existing events, and see what we can tag on to? You want to take that as a takeaway for the next meeting?
Yeah, absolutely. And
Okay.
we can stay in touch in the meantime, Ellen. After I do attend that meeting, I'll
Yeah.
give an update and let everyone know what's coming up.
Great. You can just, use the email list that we have on the distribution for the meeting if you want.
Yeah.
To, send out what your thoughts are. And I already sent that email out to the mayor's office and I copied you. So you should get on that.
Thank you.
Hopefully this, maybe as soon as Thursday, if they're still having it every week. And I think we're at open discussion and we're 3 minutes to spare. Anyone else have anything you want to bring up?
I actually do have a question now.
Yeah.
Just about a planned project for the Point of Pines. And with the traffic,
Now we
when
have,
are they looking to redo the traffic plan? Because in the traffic plan, I want to hold the planner accountable for the artwork and that they called out in the presentation.
I don't know what you're referring to.
So the modified traffic plan where there's going to be a traffic circle coming off the Pines 1A. So you're coming off Route 1A from Lynn.
Mhm.
So southbound.
Mhm.
And with the revised traffic plan that they presented for the development area, right in the center, they called out a piece of artwork.
Oh. This was back in
Yeah. Oh yeah.
like 3 years ago?
Yeah. Oh yeah. So
Yeah.
we
So,
just want to make sure it's still in their vision.
yeah, okay. I see your point. Well,
Yeah.
that was a master plan, which was basically comments that were taken by the entire community. So I
Okay.
don't know that there's really no owner necessarily of that, like assigned or that has been tagged or has funding to it.
Mhm.
The master plan was really a visioning process to talk through, what that could look like. So I know what you're saying. We can go back and look through the plan. I haven't looked at it and I've looked at pieces of it, but I haven't recalled that piece in a while. So let's have a look at that and we can talk about that at the next meeting.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay, great. Thanks. Good point though. All right, anything else? Okay, that's great. I think
Good meeting.
productive meeting. I think we're finally
Yeah.
moving some things forward. So everyone's taking a little piece of the pie and we'll make some things happen. So
Thank
Good
you very
stuff.
much.
everyone have a great
Thank
night.
you.
You too.
Thank you.
Thanks
Ken.
so much.